We don't have to try any harder. We don't need to fight anymore. We don't have to try any harder, no.
Hey, Jacob.
Hi, Scott.
The little countdown clock isn't in the usual spot. It's normally in the center. And I'm like, where is it? Have we begun?
I know. Well, this for our listeners, this is a new format inside of this program we use, and so part of the reason that this episode is delayed by a few weeks is that we actually shot an entire episode, and then none of it clicked. None of it came. I mean, we couldn't make the recording available, so we're back.
Yeah. And it was funny because that episode, probably 40 minutes in, I was talking about how I wasn't feeling very good about the episode. Like I didn't think we were in the zone.
So.
It didn't work. So Jacob blamed me for it. He would normally for jury or something, but this time I got all the blame.
Well, in reality, I didn't feel like we were totally meshing that day either. Not with each other. Just felt like we were kind of. Speaking for myself, was not completely here in the way I wanted to be.
Yeah, same. So how are you? What's happening? It's been a while. It's been almost 6 weeks since our last episode that we shared.
No way, 6 really?
August 10th.
Oh my
Doesn't that
God!
seem crazy?
Yeah, that felt like too long for sure.
Sorry, listeners.
Oh, yeah. You and you have been traveling quite a little bit. Where all have you been?
Where have I been? I'm like, have I been anywhere? I don't know. I went
Well, I
camping.
think you were going to Detroit. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I went to Detroit. Have we not talked since then? In Montana, and I went
No.
camping
Yeah.
recently. So it's been good. Yeah, the visit to Detroit was wonderful as always. I love seeing my family and my friends there, and it's been a really nice end of summer moving into fall. Like I'm loving we were just talking about this before we went live, the fall mornings and the coolness kind of that's happening here in Santa Fe. And the days have still been hot. I mean, it's still in the 80s here, so the days feel kind of summery, but the mornings and evenings feel really beautiful. And I love getting morning sun when it's crisp outside. I just go outside naked and like absorb the sun on my front and on my back and talk to the sun and thank it for for all that it does for us. That's my ritual these days.
Oh, I love that. Wow. And we're coming right up on September equinox here, day after tomorrow. I just posted a 6 rituals. Shani Nicholas wrote this 6 rituals to honor the equinox, and I loved it. It was so simple. Some of the things similar to what you just described, Scott. Just really honoring this world that we live in, clearing our space, meditating, just really becoming present and grateful for this time of. And that was the other thing she said in there was, this is the time, Mabon or Mabon, depending upon how you say that, ancient practice of honoring this time. And it's really a season of harvest, of gratitude for the fruits of all of our labors throughout the year. And I really loved that focus, just, it's been a big year for me. And for you too, like if you were going to honor and just really be excited about or happy about some of the things that have happened during this year for you, what comes to mind, Scott?
I mean, making the move to the Southwest, deciding to reside in Santa Fe and the different things that have unfolded here in the way of community, especially the people I've met and have befriended, and the chosen family that I've come to find here has been profound. That's been a major thing. Breath work has been a major thing in my life that I would honor, not only in terms of what it's done for me, but in terms of what it's doing for others when I'm guiding it. That feels very powerful. And just generally speaking, I feel like I'm continuing to come into myself more, like continuing to align with what feels most true to me and reflect that in the world. This has been going on for many years in my life, but it continues to feel deeper. And
Mhm.
I'm certainly grateful for that. And nature would always have to be a big part of anything I honor. Just the gifts
Yeah.
of the natural world. I really wasn't joking when I go out into the sun in the morning. It's always like, good morning, brother sun. I love you. Thank you so much for being here yet again and for doing all that you do for us and for the energy you give and for the vitamin D and for being an example of what it looks like to show up each day. And I get in conversation with it. And Jacob, I used to carry a lot of fear in my relationship with the sun, in all of what we're told about how harmful the sun can be for us. And I used to have very sensitive skin to the sun. And
Interesting.
surprisingly, because my heritage is Sicilian and Lebanese, like I'm a sun being, and yet I would get these rashes from the sun, even if I weren't in it very long. So I would always be layered or in sunblock, and just generally have antagonistic is maybe too strong, but a fearful relationship with it. And a couple years ago, I started this practice of engaging with the sun very differently. And this isn't to say, by the way, that getting tons of sun in the middle of the day can't be harmful to your skin. I'm not a doctor here telling you how to be with the sun. But in my experience, I started relating to it differently. And, last summer I spent most of 3 months camping outdoors the entire time. And with the exception of 2 or 3 times I can think of when I was on a beach with no shade, I didn't wear sunblock once. And I
Mhm.
was out in the sun, but also being conscious. I wasn't just baking in it naked in the middle of the day, but I was getting more sun than I've ever gotten in my life, and more willingly and less fearfully. And it was a beautiful experience. And why not get in good relationship with these aspects of our life that are so present. And even if sunblock is the choice, we can still be in good relationship with the sun.
Sure.
What about you? What are
Yeah.
some of the things that you are feeling grateful for? Or whatever you asked me, what would you answer it?
I want to stay just for a moment with what you were talking about there, Scott. It connects to something profound of this last weekend for me. And I love your sensibility of these natural forces, the sun, the wind, the trees, all these things. I love your sensibility of those as our companions, as
Yeah.
their own sort of spirit, if you will. And I've held that for a really long time. So I love hearing you reflect that. And walking outside for me, the last several months have been intense pressure, and there'd be days I just felt completely burdened. And I kept being reminded as I would walk out my door on a beautiful sunny summer morning to stand and witness, to stand
Yeah.
and remember what I'm part of here. The incredible privilege of having a body in this world, standing under trees with the magic of photosynthesis happening, with the sun that makes that work, with the wind that blows and creates the circulation of all of it, including the rain that waters. I mean, all of that, and to remember that we are intrinsically at a very deep submolecular level connected and part of all of this. It's an amazing thing. And even a couple of minutes of remembering that every day brings my spirit back down into thank you. Thank you. I get to be here. Even on those days when it's like, oh my God, there is way too much going on. I don't know how I'll get any of this done. All of those things, when I come out of those thoughts and come back into myself and remember that I have this little bit of time on this earth to be part of this earth, and
Mm.
I'm not separate from it.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. I mean, when I connect to the word oneness, it's what you're speaking to. Like that is
Yeah.
oneness, understanding that we really are all connected. And for me, it's also helped or can help with loneliness. It's like if you are engaging with the natural world around you as a part of your family, the life becomes less lonely. Like if you can genuinely start chatting with your plants, and even if they're not responding back, with a voice, it's like we become less lonely by finding a home in everything around us. And it's a beautiful, I think it's, and I don't always do this, by the way, at all, but I do it more often than I've ever done it. And
Mhm.
every
Mhm.
time I feel so present in that dialogue with the sun in the morning. Like I'm not thinking about anything else. I'm just talking to the sun for however many seconds to start the day,
Yeah.
And what about
God, you're
you?
weird.
I know,
God,
I'm a
you're
weird
weird.
hippie.
Well, and of course, over my shoulder is my book, Blessed Are the Weird. So, I mean, when
Yeah.
I say that, that's like one of my greatest compliments to you,
Yeah,
Scott. God,
I
you're weird.
receive it as such, brother. I receive it as such.
This, in terms of manifestation this year, I would say that's probably one of my greater gratitudes, Scott, at a really high level of coming into a different relationship with manifestation, with what that means but to create first from this connection with source, to really get into my heart and not just set a goal out there and then strive for that goal, but to first connect with what is true for me. What would I
Mhm,
just love? What would I love to create this year? And um, along the way, Dr. Stephen Farmer in June showed up here, and we took a beautiful trip up to the high mountains. And during our many conversations, he just brought up a book that had really changed his life from years and years ago, called The Abundance Book. And in it has a 40-day practice. I'm on day 98 today, so I've just continued to go through this practice over and over again each day, with a simple truth principle. And it unabashedly uses the word God. It unabashedly uses the phrase creative spirit, lavish abundance. And it was interesting to watch how much resistance still existed within me to remembering, and to me, adventures in nature, when I remember to look around and notice how beautifully the natural world operates, how lavishly abundant it is. Um,
mhm,
that becomes a reminder and a reflection of, this is how life is meant to be in these really natural cycles of things. And so that little book came along to really help me shift my mind,
mhm,
to begin to accept alignment with those natural principles. And that's at a very high level. At the beginning of this year, my brother and I sat down and laid out, this is what we would love to see happen financially in this enterprise we're working on. And Nate looked at me and said, I mean, that would be wonderful. How are we going to make that happen?
mhm.
Um, we were chatting last night. We've already exceeded that number.
Oh, wow, extraordinary.
Yeah. And it's, when I say that, it is with so much humility and gratitude and reverence, um, to say, this is what has happened already as a result of putting these principles into practice. And I love my brother. During this weekend that I'll tell you about in just a moment, we went on this shamanic journey together, a guided shamanic journey in the high mountains, and it was profound, as these things are if we let them
Mhm,
be. But one thing that he said during the weekend was something he had read, and that is, we don't manifest what we want, we manifest who we are.
mhm,
We don't manifest what we want, we manifest who we are. And I feel like that was probably one of my greatest struggles in the past, of really coming into the flow of manifestation, was that doing the inner work to heal the spots that were, simply blocked the ability to step into a life of greater freedom, greater financial abundance, greater love, greater energy in my body. Um, I'm beginning to understand better and better how true that is. And like the Secret movie that I used to just really love and bring in people and share viewing parties with, at the time, I was immature in my understanding of what they were talking about there. And I feel
mhm.
like I've been growing in understanding. And I actually still really love and find that movie very inspiring. I think a lot of people, including my younger self, got focused on, I'm going to manifest what I want, and
Mhm.
didn't realize the immense inner work needed to come into a place where what I want, is what I desire, is in alignment with who I really am.
Yeah, I hear that, and agree with what you're saying, and then at the same time, there are a whole bunch of people manifesting shitloads of money who are clearly not in alignment with anything. Like, I was going to say good, that's not true, obviously, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I see lots of very wealthy people out there who don't seem to be living a life that feels, what's the word I want? As ethical, let's say ethical or loving or compassionate, is what I feel like you're speaking to when you say coming into your own being and manifesting who you are, you know? So it's like both things are true. I think there are wildly unconscious people who can manifest a ton in this world, who are potentially really focused on, I want more money or more power or more, more political heights. And these people get there from their
Yeah.
sheer will and desire. Do you know what I'm saying?
Well, I do. And in fact, Into the Magic Shop, the book by Michael Doty, another book that came along in this last year or so, um, to really help me understand that better. He talks about, when he was learning the principles of real magic, of manifestation, the old lady who taught him these things warned him, and he was a young boy. She warned him, these principles are powerful and they can be used truly to get whatever you want. But unless you really hear me, you might create the mansion and the money and the Rolex and the Porsche that you just put on your list. He was a young boy in poverty and he put these things on this list. She said, you will get those things, and you will discover, if you have not connected deeply to your heart, that you're still craving, that you're still lacking, that you're still, and you can hurt a lot of people along the way. So I think it's a fascinating paradox to be with, Scott.
Yeah, I think ultimately what you're speaking to is the deepest truth about humanity, which is we all want to be joyful. Like, we all want to
Mm-hmm.
feel good. And so that is going to be a core desire no matter what we have externally. So even if you have all the wealth and all the riches and your institute is the biggest institute in the world, it's like
Yeah,
if you're not in harmony with those deeper needs, of joy and peacefulness or whatever those needs are for you, you're still going to be longing. And that's really what I feel like you're speaking to also through this, in
mm-hmm.
understanding that it is within our power to realize those deeper needs, I believe, at least more often than we're used to realizing them, which is to say,
Yeah,
for those of you listening who feel like regular joy is outside the bounds of what you're capable of creating, it's absolutely not. Or a more peaceful existence is outside the bounds when you're living this very maybe anxious wired existence. No, that's not outside the bounds. None of these things are outside the bounds of what we're capable of manifesting in our lives, in part, I believe, because it's the essence of who we are. So what we're manifesting isn't even, it's not even bringing in something new. It's just remembering who we are in our core. And when you said earlier, Jacob, so beautifully, you said something like it would you were amazed by how profound things can be when you just let them be, like how profound your experience in the high mountains are if you just let them be. And those few words are so powerful, because I'm constantly looking at the ways in which I'm just not allowing my experience to be what it is. I'm questioning, even like joyful experiences or whatever, the mind is coming in and questioning it or judging it, instead of just allowing it to be whatever it is in the moment. And so I
yeah,
love that you phrased it that way. Like, where in our lives can we be more conscious of just letting things be?
truly. I mean, is it okay if I just talk for a while about this experience over the
Would
weekend?
love it. Yes, you can talk the whole
I feel
time.
like I was going to say, I feel like if I start, I might end up using up more space than is mine for today. So feel free to jump in. Um, and I'm going to approach this carefully, Scott, as you have with some of your profound experiences this year. Sometimes speaking to plainly about these things can actually violate the sacred space that we were just in. And so I'm going to be careful with some of that, but I do feel called right now to share some of it. And back in 2007, this young guy was working for me, and he came and invited me to a meditation retreat. I've talked about that before. And he during that initiation weekend back there, my life really began to radically change. It was a watershed moment for sure. And 15 years later, at about the same time of the year, almost, I don't know exactly what date it was that I did that in September 2007, but it was basically the same time of year. I returned to the work, the medicine work, and Luke was the guide for that. And to see how he has deepened and opened and softened and gained an inner authority that is offered with such true power, it was just humbling. It was just humbling. And we've been friends the whole time. We followed each other's journeys and compared notes frequently. But to go and actually turn the reins over to this younger brother of mine and say, I'm here to do my work. I'm here to be led. It just felt amazing. And heading into the weekend, that was one of the things I was just grappling with. I'm in a position of authority in my own life, and I've been growing more comfortable with that. But to turn the steering wheel over and say, yes, this is where I'm allowing myself to really be led. It felt, as soon as I got there, as soon as I gave him a hug, and then we started into the weekend, I just felt this tremendous sense of wonderful. You are the guide that I needed for this weekend. That felt amazing.
Beautiful.
We went to the City of Rocks, which I had never visited here in Idaho, and it's at about the same elevation as where you live, Scott. So our campsite was around 7,500 feet. And it's this landscape. You've been here to Idaho. You're driving through these hills that are very bare, and they have sagebrush, and the grass is dry from the summer heat. And then you turn off the highway and go up into the mountains, and then you come around this corner, and all of a sudden there's this magical landscape. It feels like something out of Lord of the Rings. These massive granite structures that feel like beings. I mean, they're almost like statues. Many of them. They're just wow. Okay. Wow. And aspen trees and pine trees and skies that just go forever. So we got there, set up camp, and then, went off and meditated and came into our ceremony. And the other notable thing was that another man I met through our men's group here in Boise had actually invited me to this, because he had gone and done some work with Lucas a couple of times. And I really asked the question, is this my time? I've been invited back many, many times, and have felt in most of the times during the last 15 years to go and do medicine work on my own. And this was a yes. And I could feel the anxiety, like, oh, okay, going back in. But my brother Nate also joined me, and we sat there during this weekend and just marveled that he was even able to feel a yes and to come do that work. Because when I went and did that back in 2007, he and my other brother, who were, part of this business, all these businesses we were involved with together, they were like, dude, what happened to you? You went up in the mountains and did some drugs with some hippies, and now you're changing, and we don't know who you are, they used to laugh a lot. I'd have coffee back years ago. They would refer to it as, shaman sticks and wizard wands, and that was their ha ha ha. He's just a goofball, So I looked over at Nate at some point across the fire this weekend. I said, shaman sticks and wizard wands, huh? And he started laughing with tears coming down his face. He's like, yeah, okay.
Yeah. Was this his first time using plant medicine?
He's had some other very mild experiences. This was his first time to really go into an initiation. So and I'm really glad seeing our personalities. Yeah. Nate would say that the way to tell the story of our separate personalities is Jake's the guy who will go jump in head first into the river, and not check the temperature, and I've got to wade in, and it takes me about an hour. We both get in the river eventually, but I have to go my own way.
Yeah. And what medicine were you
So,
using, Jacob?
so psilocybin, and there was also some LSD and some MDMA.
Okay. Did you feel uncomfortable sharing that in that moment?
I'm just a little careful, less for myself because those things are. The answer is yes, but I felt it was okay to do it. I'm careful about this because they're in such popular conversation now,
Yeah,
and people who are using these without proper guidance, without all of that, can actually either get in some trouble or they don't treat the spirit of those medicines with the proper reverence,
sure.
and may not have the experience that is so sacred.
Gotcha. Okay. Go on. Sorry to interrupt.
I want you to interrupt. So, um, yeah, ever since my initiation in 2007, because of the way these practices were handled with such reverence and such safety and care, I've never treated any of these things as entertainment. It's every time I've gone back into an experience, it's been okay. This is going to work me. I'm treating the spirit of whatever medicine it is with the proper reverence, um, and there's an element of surrender that really has to happen for these things to kind of enter into a deeper part in myself. And I
Mhm.
think really anyone, but a number of principles that Luke shared during the weekend that were familiar to me, but I loved having them shared. And you know what it is, Luke, or Luke, Scott, to be in medicine, and how profound something that sounds like a simple statement is in medicine, in ceremony.
Sure.
It really goes deep. And he was sharing, when we're moving through an experience with one of these medicines, oftentimes we are being taken outside of our usual way of processing and controlling life, which is the mind, the thinking mind, and that can be very uncomfortable and destabilizing. The mind that is so used to seeing and trying to control the world in a certain way does not like to give up control in that way. Does not
Sure.
like to say, yes, let me experience this fully. So Luke was talking about whenever we're feeling uncomfortable, and also to take this back to everyday life, not just in these, mountain experiences, the peak experiences. Um, Number one is surrender. I don't know what's going on right now. I do want to see more of it than my usual perspective would allow me to see and feel. And the second is, um, help me to feel this all the way. Help me to feel this deeply. Help me to feel as much as I need to heal. Help me to heal as much as I need to, so I can feel, and to lean in rather than to lean back from discomfort or unfamiliarity, to actually lean toward it. And something that I don't think that I had heard before that he shared was, in these experiences and also in normal awareness life, if we can remember that, he said, if you can just remember that these things aren't happening to you, these uncomfortable situations, they're actually coming out of you. So the fear you might be feeling, or the bliss that you might be feeling, whichever it is, like, it's coming out of you,
Yeah.
and not to hang on to that and say and try to define the experience, whatever it is, like that's bad, that's fearful, that's terrible, or even hang on to the bliss, like, yes, this is the only experience I should ever have. This is just this
Mhm.
bliss and this wonder and joy and gratitude and magic. He's like, if we can remember that all of these experiences are coming out of us, they're coming through us, they're meant to be used, they're meant to help us be guided in our lives. um, those principles during this weekend continued to go deeper, and I know they will continue to go deeper in the next months and years even.
Well, keep going. I'm with you.
Okay. There was, my father died 12 years ago. In Later this month would be 12 years, and I've had these experiences, Scott, with um working in the field that I'm in, different people have psychic gifts and they show up. And so I've had a number of people in the last several years show up and say, hey, your dad has a message for you. Are you willing to hear from him? And I've appreciated their respect for consent, because I don't like it when people just come and barf their spiritual insights or psychic visions
Yeah.
on me. But I've been, yeah, okay, yes, I would love to hear that. And they would say, well, okay, so this spirit, this being, it kind of shows up in this way, and they would describe, who it was, and without any other contact with my father, be like, yep, you're talking to my dad. I mean, that's him.
Wow.
And he has, through the years since he died, found ways of communicating with me and with other members of my family. And he's always been, much like he was in life, he's always been very worried. He's always been very concerned for our safety, that we're going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
And when we sat down around the fire, and Luke opens with this ancient tradition of tobacco pipe that is, honoring the four directions, the seasons, the above and the below,
Sure.
the within, without. And I love that. I love that ceremony. It's amazing. And he spent years in practice before he was actually given a pipe to be a leader of that ceremony. So he treats it with tremendous care. When we sat there, he had this little abalone shell that had white sage leaves in it that we could offer to the fire as offerings during the weekend. But there was this little bag, this little gauze bag in there. And he said, yeah, another person who came and worked with me left that for me. And he's like, I wasn't sure. I've never brought that substance to ceremony before, but he said, it'll show up when it's supposed to. He said, it is for this weekend. I'm not sure what yet. And at one point on Saturday afternoon, after we'd been through rain and wind and all this weather that was really tracking our experience, really tracking our journey, the sun had started to come out, and we had taken our rain ponchos off, and we were just sitting there kind of basking in the fire and the warmth of the sun. And he came over and carried that little bag in his hand, and he handed it to me, and he said, your dad is here right now. And I looked down in my hand, there was this little bag of lavender, lavender blossoms dried. And that was my dad's shit. I think we have an earthquake going
Yeah.
on.
Do you need to do something?
I'm think we're fine. I'm just going to sit here.
I just
You
saw
heard
your
that.
house shake.
Okay. Yeah.
Whoa.
Whew. So, hi,
Your
Dad.
dad, your dad is going to say your dad is really here. Holy shit. Are you good?
So,
Do you need to
yeah,
do anything?
no, I don't see anything falling or anything. So I'm just going to stay here for a moment. Thank you.
Wow.
Um,
That is wild.
so my dad and I had been emotional in that part of the medicine, like really letting and just feeling so grateful. But one of the things my dad represents, Scott, and is this family history of unbelievable, almost indescribable trauma, sexual trauma, poverty. And he worked that as hard as he could in his life, and he really got out and stopped the train and did not allow the sexual trauma to influence our young lives, my siblings and me. And he didn't ever get over the hump financially. He felt lost and like a loser most of his life, and in spite of all that, he was an artist and a beautiful soul, like really a beautiful guy. And he was difficult and depressed and had a lot of these other things going on. But this weekend, when Luke handed me that little satchel, I just started weeping,
Mm.
I just started weeping, and I could feel, and Nate was next to me, and he was deep in medicine and, like almost not able to kind of rationalize at all what was going on. So Luke came and handed him some of the stuff, and he's like, when it's time, you can really just offer this to the fire as transmutation, as gratitude. And he's like, okay. And I turned to Nate and said, brother, we weren't ever able to truly mourn dad properly together. At the time I was, living in Austin. I came back, but the family didn't, there was a big breach in the family, and, they weren't really talking to me, and I didn't know how to connect. And so, we certainly hugged each other and were together during his memorial, but we hadn't ever really sat together in that. And in all of this emotion, I could just feel myself being guided to say deep thank you to my father, and I could feel him telling me, it's time to let go of your loyalty to the family chains of poverty, of scarcity, of fear. He said, I want you to have the life that is possible for you. Like, this is your time to really energetically let that go. So it felt like an exchange with the spirit of my father in allowing ourselves, myself, but also with my brother, to really just say thank you, to really say thank you for the life you lived, and to honor the amount of success that he had in stopping that train, and not letting it continue on, to hurt further generations. And after that, I ended up walking up this little path up to a ridge. And Scott, there was this panorama, and it was the sky and the cliffs and the mountains and this tremendous valley below us. It was all washed by rain, and the wind was gentle, and the sun was shining, and there were wildflowers, and I was in heaven. It felt like this is heaven. And also there was this tremendous sense of, I'm part of this creation.
Mm.
This moment was created for me, and in some way by me, not as the great creator, but as participating in this
Yeah.
moment. And I get to go back to my life with that sensibility, with that consciousness that every moment of my life is created for me and by me, with me. And in a little while, the other guys came up the trail and stood by me, and way off in the distance, these clouds were just magnificent. And there was this, I've never seen a rainbow like this. It was not an arc, and it wasn't even a straight line. It was just a glow of rainbow way off in the distance between the clouds and the mountaintops out there. And it just stayed there. It just stayed and stayed and stayed. And my brother came up and stood by me, and he's like, is that real? Are we seeing that? Or is that just the medicine? And Luke came up and put his arms around me. He said, yeah, that's real. He's like, that's this space. And my totem animal, you'll see one of them behind me on the shelf, is raven. And ravens were all over that space. They just kept circling our campsite. And Luke said, this area is known for its variety of birds, of big birds, buzzards and hawks and eagles. He said, I almost never see raven out here. He said, I love raven, but I never see raven. He's like, as you know, raven is keeper of magic and of transformation and of mystery. And I felt so grateful that my spirit guy kept showing up all around us, And right before we broke camp and left the next morning, had the closing pipe and shared our things together and got some more teaching. This huge raven kept circling our overhead just right above our camp, and it was just powerful. It was powerful, man. I come back to feeling so reverent. And of course, I'm sure you've experienced this in the past, coming back to normal awareness, back to the pressures of life. I really asked Spirit to help me make the transition gracefully, because sometimes it could be so hard to come back and to carry these things. It feels like such a different galaxy, even, like all of that happened out there, but to gently and gracefully come back to this world and take care of my duties and the pressures and responsibilities. And I've felt very helped the last few days in being able to come back to this world, and with reverence, with humility, and making enough space around me, around myself, to integrate. And that first experience in 2007 has taken all these years to really integrate. And I know that what I just experienced over this weekend will likely have ripple effects going out into the next years. And so I don't know how those will appear, but I'm grateful for another bath, you know.
Yeah. It's so beautiful, brother, what you shared, and the experience with your father. I mean, that's so deep and so profound. And if that were the only thing you experienced over the course of the weekend, I'm sure that would be enough, you know. And I want to
Yeah.
ask you, were there any other downloads that came to you over the course of that weekend that you feel called to share in any way?
Thank you. You know, it was interesting, Scott. Right before we got there, we had just closed out the early bird pricing on this writer's retreat we're doing in October. And I've been using these abundance principles and really shifting and holding the vision that I have for this event to be a deep, transformative, joyful, real magic kind of experience for everyone. And also that the finances would show up to meet that and make it possible to really do that. And just before early bird, so in the week before that, I mean, we were doing well, but you know, there was still, it felt like a long way to go. We just had this like dam break of registrations. I mean, holy shit. And it was interesting. So the day before we left was the day we ended the early bird, and that, you know, there's a lot of activity around that, and you know, just a big
Sure.
rush, and also a lot of intensity, a lot of pressure, stress, kind of. And so it just felt so amazing to close that out. And as we went up there, I just could feel myself able to relax and go, I can't believe how I'm being provided for here. I
Mm,
cannot believe how these things are actually coming true all around me. And it was like this tremendous message from guide, spirit, everything. Just, you can actually let go of your loyalty to struggle. You can actually let
mhm,
go of your loyalty to how hard everything has to be to have wonderful things happen. And I'm honest, that's not an easy thing for me to do.
mhm.
It's not any, it was not easy for me to let go of that struggle, you know. And so this weekend, that was one of the things in medicine as I was standing up there by myself. As I was standing up there by myself, um, it was fascinating to have this experience of the whisper that came to me was, let it be sweet.
Mm,
Why do you feel loyal to the idea that these things have to be excruciating? What if it can just start to be really sweet? What if you've done your hard work and you can just begin to allow this next season of your life to truly be abundant and sweet and create joy and share joy with other people? And I know that even to my own ears, that just sounds like, man, that just sounds too good to be true. And you know what? I'm willing for things to be too good to be true, Scott. And I'm also not using that as some sort of defense against things ever being uncomfortable again,
of
of
course.
having, because I know for sure there will be things that come up that need to be worked through and released and all of that. But so interesting to hear that my work right now is to allow things to be a lot easier, to allow things to be a lot sweeter.
That's huge, man, because it's we're conditioned in the exact opposite way, right? To expect things to be a struggle, to believe that you have to work as hard as you can possibly work in order for something to be achieved. And that can be a pathway to things as well, but of course it's possible that things don't have to be a struggle, and of course that things could be sweet and that we can allow. And of course, if you bring more intention and consciousness to that possibility, you're much more likely to find it. I have the same thing when I announce events too. It's I don't think it's ever been it's never felt just smooth and easy. Like my mind is caught up on everything with to do with it. Are
Yeah.
people going to sign up? And it always feels like some element of struggle. And the truth is, whether or not you have, let's say you have 200 people coming to whatever it is you're doing, it's like, wouldn't we all prefer to get there in a more relaxed way and in a more
Right.
receptive way? Because I feel like for me, when I'm in that struggle, I've lost touch with with my alignment. I've lost touch with source. I've lost touch with the belief that who I am is enough and that I am actually being provided for. I just need to stay connected to who I am and what I'm offering and feel good about that and let things unfold around it. And I think I know that I've actually, by the energy I've brought to certain offerings, energetically kept people away because my energy
Yeah,
wasn't receptive, it wasn't available, it wasn't allowing. It was stressed out and unworthy and tense, and that's not an inviting energy. So
that's
I love
right.
that you shared
Scott,
that.
I have some workmen who just came in, and I'm going to pause just for a moment so I can talk to them about that so it doesn't get noisy here.
Okay, cool. So we're back. I Yeah, so I think I really appreciate you bringing that up, brother, because I connect it to what I've been thinking about this month. And it's funny, I was only hesitating because I'm writing a newsletter about this, and I'm like, then people are going to hear it here, and those who read it, but whatever, you'll get it in both places. September has traditionally been a very difficult month for members of my family because it's when we lost my parents and it's when we lost my brother. And so
Wow.
for decades, when September would come around, there's this energy of, oh shit, it's
Yeah.
gonna be heavy, it's gonna be sad. And I stopped it. I just stopped attaching myself to that idea and to that expectation because I was really aware that I was so not just being present with what is. And just because things have been going on, or just because things were some way year after year after year, truly doesn't have to have any bearing on how they're going to be in the future or in the present. And I think we do ourselves such a profound disservice so often by setting ourselves up for misery. How many of us are like, the holidays are such a hard time for me, or Valentine's Day is brutal for me, or this is really tough for me, or blah blah blah. We all do it, and that isn't to say that if you've had the lived experience of the holidays being difficult for you for any number of reasons, that there is a possibility they might be difficult for you moving forward, and there's great value in bringing to that possibility some intention. Like, prepare yourself in a way where you're setting yourselves up for good connections with people, and you're taking care of yourself extra because the holidays have traditionally been difficult. So great, you're going in more intentionally, but not by committing to this notion that the holidays are always difficult for me. You don't know because you haven't lived all the holidays, right? There's years and years ahead of you of holidays you haven't experienced. Why would we ever commit ourselves to them being miserable and unhappy? It doesn't make any sense. And this September has been fantastic. I've had such a
Wow.
lovely September, coming off the 14th, the anniversary of my brother, and the 16th, the anniversary of my parents. And it's like, yes, I'm aware of those days on the days, but it just, nothing has to be anything than what it is. And it comes back to what you said earlier, if you let it be. And I really do believe that so much of that is energetic. And if you are committed to the holidays or Valentine's Day being miserable for you, you're likely to live into that reality and create it on some level. So
Yeah.
how can we stop doing that? Where can we look at the expectations we're creating in our lives that actually serve misery, instead of the allowance of just being present with whatever it is? And if misery is what it is, okay, maybe you've got some tools that you brought in that you were prepared for, but maybe you're not going to be miserable this holiday season. Even if you're not married and have the kids you want, or you lost a loved one, or whatever, all the reasons we can be triggered during the holidays. It's like, what if we can just go into them, allowing them to be whatever they are?
Yes. Yeah. One of the steps that has always helped me, Scott, in beginning to untangle a knot of energy, a snarl around something, and because I had many of those in my life, really many of them, is honesty and surrender. And what you're just talking about is surrender. It's,
Mhm.
I'm going to allow this to be what it is. I'm not going to be as attached to, this doesn't have to mean anything about me.
Yeah.
Um, and that's a very simple, easy little phrase to, say. It's not always nearly as simple or easy to live. Or let me just say that it's always simple to live. It's often not easy to live.
Yes. Yes.
Um, but honesty, I know that the healing that I've had with my family, the fact that Nate, my brother, my oldest, first best friend, and I were able to come back together. We just sat there during this weekend over and over again, just amazed that we got to do this work together, because
Mhm.
he didn't think he would ever be interested in any of my crazy shit.
Uh-huh.
Um, but I just think about the long trail over the last 15 years of learning how to be honest,
Yeah. Yeah.
learning how to be honest with him about how I felt, taking risks of being honest. And a little bit at a time, those small honesties began to dissolve this big lump of energy that we couldn't any of us look at together very well, a little bit at a time. And by me taking a step in honesty, that created a little bit of more safety for other people in my family to begin to be honest back to me, because I needed to hear some things too.
Yeah.
And not saying at all that all of that work is finished with between us yet, but it is wonderful to stop and acknowledge progress and say, I can't believe we're actually here. Because
Yeah.
15 years ago, holidays were tense. 15 years ago, we weren't talking
Yeah.
more than just, superficial bullshit. And that didn't feel good to any of us. And so just a little bit at a time, that honesty seems to be the antidote to things staying snarled, you know.
Yeah. And also not making assumptions. I've never read the Four Agreements, but man, I've been living with that one a lot lately. Like, don't make assumptions. Don't make assumptions about other people and their desires and their interests, and don't make assumptions about your own life and how it's going to play out. It is a really liberating experience to let go of assumptions, because you could have lived in the assumption based on knowing your brother that he would never want to participate in a ceremony like this weekend, and not have even included him had you been living in
Yeah.
that space, right? And it's so easy. I look at all the different ways my mind wants to say, oh, they would never be interested in that, and so I don't even bother to ask people, you know because I've decided that they would never want to do it. And you just don't really know, even if you think you know. And sometimes what you would assume is what happens, but you know what? Sometimes it's not. And it's such a
Right.
surprise. And the energy of the invitation
Yeah.
is might be the catalyst that gets somebody to step outside their comfort zone and do the thing you would have assumed they would never have done.
Right. I mean, yes. Yes. Yeah. Um, hmm. I hearken back to something that I heard way back years and years ago, probably in the same circles. But they said, when one person heals, everyone heals.
Mhm.
And I've watched our family not, and we're a interestingly intense, tightly connected tribe of people. And I've been fascinated to notice, Scott, that as I began to commit to my own healing and not even begin to let go of even needing them to heal along with me in ways that I thought they should heal, right? That
Mhm.
should. As I began to be taken more and more deeply into my own experience of healing, and then come up for air every so often and look around and go, oh my God, there's my brother over there, my other brother, and he's healing, and he's not walking the same path that I am, but he's healing. Oh
Mhm.
my God, look at that. Wow. And look at how our relationship is changing. And then, oh, there's my sister, and she's healing. And I just know that if as I have committed to the depth of my own healing and then becoming into my own joy, this isn't I'm the leader and I did this for them. It's, oh my God, this is real magic. When a cell begins to heal, it spreads healing around it. It can't help it. And it doesn't have to have an agenda. It doesn't say, I'm going to heal all of you. In fact,
Yeah.
when I was trying to do that, it was just making things worse.
Yeah, it's all energy. That's all it is.
Yeah.
And it's the only possibility is that the things around it will start to heal as well. That's what's so beautiful
Speaking of
about this.
everything is
Go ahead, what?
No, I'm sorry. Speaking of everything is energy, I thought of you a number of times this weekend, Scott.
Oh yeah?
And your phrase that you repeat, everything is energy.
Yeah.
I showed up to that campsite, and just as we were putting the stones around to make the ceremonial fire, there were all these coins all over the ground. And I began to pick them up. And first of all, just feeling gratitude for, look, here's another symbol of how, money is actually just around us. And it's, so thank you. And that felt like a symbolic, thing to go, wow, yeah, just more evidence when we're looking for it, when we're allowing ourselves to see it, that what we need is really all around us.
Yes.
And the great universe wants to provide it for us. But I stacked it up on a little rock of the fire ring. And during some of the medicine, I would sit there and just hold it in my hand. And, I think I've said on this show before that a couple of years ago when I just quit my job and I went up and had a little sabbatical, and my spirit guide said, you need to forgive money. It is only energy, and it can become healing. It can become medicine. It can become a joy, a tool, a great force. And so I kept holding it in my hand, and I kept saying, I forgive you. Thank you. I love you. Thank you for being here. And then right at the end, as we were getting ready to separate and go home, I use that as my token of exchange with the guide there. He gets paid actual money, but it was like this. I was going to send that through Venmo later, but I said, I want to hand you this as an exchange, a symbolic exchange of actual tangible money, not just,
Yeah.
yes, we all did healing and it's beautiful, but actual, here you go. Here's the physical proof, evidence of this exchange. So I was so grateful for the way money showed up all around me that weekend to remind me that I got to energetically release it from my previous perspective of how filthy and enslaving and greedy, and how much it's hurt our planet and each other and all of that, and just go, okay, that is one possibility for money. Like you were talking about earlier, people who can manifest a lot of it and still end up doing really horrible things with it. I choose going forward in my life to allow money to be the energy of medicine, of joy, of healing.
Beautiful, brother. I love that. Yeah, you're a shining example of what that can look like as your institute continues to grow and your events continue to be successful. Really, I think you're leading the charge.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
And I'm so excited, man. I know you and I have been talking offline a bit, but I'm so excited about a retreat that I have beginning to form, called the Heal Plus Create Shift Retreat. And that's something I want you involved with, and our brother David Gandelman and some other ones. So I'm really looking forward to putting that together for 2023.
Beautiful. Where's that going to be? Have you decided?
Somewhere awesome.
Okay.
I would love it to be somewhere warm near the ocean, but we'll see,
Okay, beautiful, brother. I love it. Yeah, so it feels like a good time to wrap up, and I know you've got workers there. What else do you want to tell listeners and viewers about what's going on for like your work and your?
Oh, the work. Yeah, thank you. Well, let's see. We have end of October, 29th, 30th. We have this writer's retreat with Anne Lamott, Sark, Julia Cameron, and several others of us that I'm so excited about. And we're just about sold out on the in-person seats. So that's wrapping. The live broadcast portion can become a lot more people. We have over 500 signed up for that right now. So it'll, from around the world. I'm so excited to share this with people from Norway and Africa and Australia and all over the world.
Incredible.
It's just really, really, I'm astonished, to see how that has been unfolding. So, but then along the way, we also have at Heal Create, we also have these Heal Plus Create. We have these open sessions. And Scott, I would love to do one with you soon for breath work,
100%.
if you're willing.
I would love that so
Okay,
much.
let's get on the calendar for October. I would love
Okay.
that.
Yes.
And Tonight we're doing one with Paul David Shea for Dao Yin Yoga Qigong, and this is his third month to come back and share that.
Okay.
And some other stuff. And a meditation one with Dr. Chris Niebauer later this month. So a lot going on. If you want to get on our list and subscribe, just head over to healcreate.org.
Beautiful. And we'll have that in the show notes. Awesome, brother. Yeah.
What about you, brother?
I'm doing back to weekly online breath work. It's called Breath and Belonging, and I'm loving it. There's one tomorrow, Wednesday, the 21st, depending on when you're hearing this. But I'm doing it every week. The day isn't locked in. It's been the past few times it's been on Wednesdays because that's what's worked out. But I'm pretty committed to having it once a week, and it's been beautiful. I was going to say it keeps getting better and better, but that's not even true because it always feels great. But it's just it's just the excitement I'm feeling about it continues to build, maybe because the feedback I get from people who show up, it's so positive and people are so just overwhelmed in a good way by what they're experiencing there. So I'll have a link to that, but you can come join us and breathe with us for an hour. It's I know for some of you listening, you're like, what's going to happen if we're breathing? But this is not a meditative, quiet breath. And it's only 30 minutes actually of active breathing, but it's going to take you on a journey. And if you're like many, you'll come out of it as a first timer and send me some version of what the fuck just happened in my body with surprise and delight.
So I want to reflect on that, Scott. I was talking with Luke this weekend about breath work, and of course he's experienced it, and I have a number of times, and we were just laughing with each other and going, yeah, these other medicines are so powerful, and breath work, we've had experiences with breath work that are every bit as powerful and transformative as using an external substance. Like,
Absolutely.
holy shit.
It's holy shit stuff. Yeah. So that's pretty, that's what's going on right now. I'm heading to Canyon Ranch in a couple days in Woodside, California, it's one of my favorite. It is probably my favorite of their locations. And it's in a 16-acre redwood grove. That's where their campus is. And I'll be leading a retreat there called Living with a Wide Open Heart. So that should be fun and lovely.
Now, are you going to put a link to that? Are people able to still sign up, or is it done?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can still go to that. Yeah, I'll put a link to that as well. Yeah. So
okay.
Yeah.
And I just want to say, if you keep hearing Scott and me talk about these things, you've never experienced it, and I'm specifically talking about Scott's online breath work. Jump in, try this stuff. Like, don't just listen to the podcast. We're sharing these things, and Scott, in that particular experience, I just want to invite people, not sell them, not push them, but go, Absolutely. Hey, if you've been hearing this over and over again, like, jump in and try it. Just let yourself take some sips of that experience,
Yeah, thank you so much. And it's very affordable. And if it's something that is out of your budget, just send me an email and we'll make it work for you to come join us so you can get a taste of it. All right. Cool, brother.
Brother, I missed you. I can't believe it was 6 weeks. And thank you for your patience during those intense weeks. But I look forward to doing the next one with you.
Yeah, you too, brother. I love you. And listeners, thank you so much for being with us.
We don't have to try any harder.